Hello everyone, and welcome back to my channel. Every time I get to meet you again, it brings me joy and also gives me the motivation to continue sharing meaningful and emotional stories. Today, I will bring you the next chapter in the journey of Lythieuca, an episode woven from both joy and sorrow, from the simple moments of everyday life to the tense, breath-holding situations. The story will take us through a full spectrum of emotions, the warmth of family bonds, the heavy worries when unexpected hardships strike, and even the quiet moments when one is forced to confront themselves. Will Hoai be able to stand strong in the face of such overwhelming challenges? Will love and faith be enough to become the flame that lights her heart, giving her the strength to keep moving forward? These questions will gradually be revealed in today's episode. So, let's sit together, set aside the daily worries, and accompany the characters through every detail of the story. Every glance, every line, every small twist carries a deep meaning that will bring us closer to the truth behind these turbulent days. This will be an intense yet deeply touching episode, and I truly believe that by the end, you will feel something unique that resonates deep within your heart. At noon in the height of summer, sunlight spilled down onto the old tiled roof, shimmering through the gaps between the beetle palm leaves at the front gate. The cicada's steady hum blanketed the yard in a thick, buzzing chorus. On the weathered wooden bench under the porch, Hoai and her mother, sat side by side, their hands moving swiftly as they tied bundles of fresh greens just picked from the garden. On a bamboo tray lay rows of cucumbers, still carrying the scent of earth, their glossy skins glistening under the sun, exuding the crisp fragrance of the countryside fields. Each time they finished a bundle, mother and daughter exchanged simple words about tomorrow's market, the prices lately, and the familiar customers who often came to buy vegetables. In the midst of their work, Hoai suddenly froze, her trembling hand rising to her forehead. A faint frown crossed her face as she closed her eyes, trying to push away the dizziness. Softly, she confided to her mother that she had lately been feeling lightheaded, her head heavy and hazy, and that sometimes, when standing too long, the ground seemed to sway beneath her. Hearing this, Mother Ha's heart skipped a beat. She immediately dropped the vegetables in her hand and turned to her daughter with eyes filled with worry. She grasped Hoai's frail, work-worn hand, a hand now even weaker because it was carrying new life. Her voice grew low, yet firm. You're carrying a little soul inside you. You can't take your health lightly. Work less, rest more, eat properly. Don't push yourself too hard, or it will harm both you and the baby. Hoai managed a faint smile, but it couldn't conceal her fatigue. Deep down, she knew her strength was fading day by day, yet she chose to hide it, not wanting to make her mother, or especially her husband, worry. The thought of him stirred a deep ache in her chest. At this very moment, Hung was far away, stationed on duty, splitting his time between combating smugglers and working with local villagers. Every time she heard news of him and his comrades confronting reckless men at the border, her heart clenched tight. He carried such heavy responsibilities that he scarcely had the time to think about his wife's struggles back home. For that reason, she kept silent, afraid of adding to the burdens weighing on him. To ease her mother's concern, Hoai quickly changed the subject, promising that later in the afternoon she would gather some medicinal herbs from the forest to brew into a tonic, something to restore her strength and ease the headaches. Mother Ha looked at her daughter with lingering unease in her eyes, yet she still nodded. She understood that sometimes, being strong was the only way her daughter could endure these days. A gentle breeze drifted through the gate, rustling the banana leaves with a soft whisper. Leaning her head against her mother's shoulder, Hoai let the fragile peace of that moment wash over her. In her eyes shimmered both worry and quiet resolve. She knew she had to stay strong, to be a pillar for herself, for the child growing inside her, and for the home that Hung cherished, even from afar. The scorching midday sun blazed down as if it were setting the sky on fire. Harsh light poured over the vast cornfield, so dazzling that one had to squint to see the rows of stalks swaying in the hot wind. The air was suffocating, heavy with heat. Dry, searing gusts swept across, carrying red dust from the narrow path along the field, whirling upward in thick clouds before settling stubbornly onto faces, clothes, and skin. Amid the sweltering scene, Hoai and her mother, worked tirelessly. Bending low, they pulled out stubborn weeds tangled among the young corn shoots, their calloused hands moving with practiced speed, hardened by years of toil. The conical hat on Hoai's head was frayed at the edges, faded from countless days under sun and rain. She tugged it lower, trying to shield herself from the blazing heat, but no matter how she tried, the burning air still pressed down, making sweat stream from her face, dripping onto the cracked earth below. Her pregnant belly, growing heavier by the day, made every movement harder. Each bend, each stretch, forced her breath to quicken. Her back was soaked with sweat, hair plastered to her damp skin, yet she uttered no complaint. The glaring sunlight blurred her vision, her mind spun as though squeezed tight by invisible hands. Still, knowing her mother was bent over beside her, she bit her lip and endured in silence. She would not let her weakness show. Then it struck, an agonizing stab in her lower abdomen that made her whole body tremble. Her hand flew to her belly, her face draining of all color. Breath ragged, her legs buckled beneath her. Before she could call out, she felt it, warm liquid spilling out, soaking through the coarse brown fabric of her skirt. Blood. Bright crimson spreading fast, seeping into the cloth, dripping onto the parched earth, blossoming like a wound torn open beneath the merciless summer sun. The sight left her stunned. Eyes wide, lips parted as though to call a name, yet no sound escaped. Her frail body swayed, then collapsed onto the cracked ground. Sweat, dust, and blood merged into a harrowing scene, engulfing the young woman who carried a fragile life within her. Mother Ha, just lifting her head to speak, froze in horror as she saw her daughter crumple. She flung aside the basket of corn, heart pounding wildly, legs trembling as she rushed forward. In a heartbeat, she was kneeling in the dirt, cradling Hoai's limp body in her arms. Her hands shook as she lifted her daughter's pale face to her lap, her heart gripped in a crushing vice. "Oh God, Hoai. My child, please hold on. Don't leave me, don't leave the baby." Her wails tore through the stifling field air, raw and desperate. Tears streamed down her cheeks, mingling with sweat and dust, as her voice broke again and again. She clutched her daughter's shoulders, shaking gently, as if coaxing her back to life. Her cries rose higher, echoing across the endless cornfield. "Somebody! Please! Help us! Save my child!" Her desperate voice vanished into the buzzing chorus of cicadas and the whisper of hot winds. No one answered. Only the merciless sun bore witness as blood continued to pool across the red earth, cold and unyielding, as though it were draining the very breath from Hoai's body. In her mother's trembling embrace, her lips quivered faintly, trying to form a name, the name of her husband, far away, weighed down by duty and danger at the border. But her voice, fragile as a dying flame, dissolved before it could take shape, vanishing into the burning silence of that summer noon. Just as Mother Ha's desperate cries echoed across the empty cornfield, a familiar figure suddenly appeared at the end of the dusty red road leading into the village. It was Du. Drenched in sweat after carrying his goods at the market, his dark shirt clung to his back. The bamboo yoke across his shoulders sagged under its heavy load, his weary steps dragging across the cracked earth. The anguished voice made him freeze. Lifting his head, Du scanned the field, and his heart nearly stopped. Before him, on the lush green rows of corn, Hoai lay collapsed in her mother's trembling arms, her brown skirt soaked in a spreading pool of blood. Her face was ghostly pale, her lips quivering as if whispering a name, but no sound rose above the wind. Without a second thought, Tieu threw down his yoke, baskets toppling, vegetables spilling across the roadside. He didn't even glance back. His heart thundered, breath caught, and only one thought screamed in his mind: save Hoai. He sprinted forward, dropped to his knees beside them, and reached with trembling hands to lift her frail body. At once he felt it, her weight frighteningly light, her skin cold, her breaths thin and broken, as fragile as a thread about to snap. His voice cracked with panic, urgent and raw. "Auntie. We can't wait. I'll take her to the hospital now, there's no time left." Mother Hu's face was streaked with tears, her hands clutching her daughter's sleeve as if letting go meant losing her forever. Hearing Tieu's words, she broke down, nodding frantically, her cries torn from the depths of her soul. "Save them, please, save my child and her baby, don't let anything happen, I beg you." With no more time to waste, Tieu pulled Hoai tightly against his chest, lifting her as if cradling her entire fragile life in his arms. Blood seeped into his shirt, hot and insistent, a burning reminder that every second counted. Gritting his teeth, he gathered all his strength into his legs and charged down the road toward the hospital. His footsteps pounded against the cracked earth, leaving deep, hurried prints. Dust billowed up, mingling with sweat dripping down his face. Yet Tieu did not slow, did not look back, he only pushed forward with a single desperate thought: faster. Faster, or it will be too late. Behind him, Mother Hu ran with all the strength left in her aging body, her sobs tearing through the scorching noon air. "Oh God, please save my daughter, save the baby inside her. Have mercy, don't let disaster strike us now." One young, one old, one carrying, one chasing, together they fled the trembling cornfield. Ahead, the winding red road stretched endlessly toward the town, shimmering under the blazing sun. Neither dared slow, for every step, every breath, carried the weight of life and death. In Tieu's arms, Hoai let out a faint moan, her heavy eyelids fluttering as if to close forever. He clutched her tighter, as though his own warmth and strength could keep her tethered to this world. Behind him, Mother Hu's bare feet bled on the sharp stones, yet she pressed on, whispering the same prayer over and over, begging heaven itself for mercy. That midday sky seemed to darken unnaturally, as if mourning. The wind howled in their ears, the pounding of 3 desperate hearts blending into a song of survival. Fate had thrust Hoai onto the razor's edge between life and death, leaving those who loved her drowning in a terror beyond measure. The heavy sound of the emergency room door closing echoed down the corridor, leaving behind a suffocating silence. Outside, on the cold metal bench, Mother Hu and Tieu sat with their eyes fixed on the glowing red light above the door. Every second dragged on like an eternity. The afternoon heat lingered even within the hospital halls, faintly scented with disinfectant. Footsteps rushed by, voices called patients' names over the loudspeaker, but for them, everything blurred into the background. Only one fragile flame burned in their hearts. Would Hoai be able to survive, and could the baby be saved? Tieu paced restlessly, his fists clenched so tightly his knuckles turned white. Sweat beaded on his forehead, though the air conditioning hummed overhead. From time to time, he stopped and stared at the closed door, as though sheer willpower could pierce it and reach Hoai inside. The memory of carrying her under the blazing sun, blood soaking through his shirt, tightened painfully around his chest. Beside him, Mother Hu's swollen eyes stared blankly, her trembling hands clutching prayer beads, lips moving silently though no prayer came out. Now and then, she lifted her face toward the door, tears spilling down her gaunt cheeks without warning. Time seemed to freeze. Then suddenly, the door opened. A doctor in a white coat stepped out, his expression weary, his face shadowed with gravity. Du rushed forward at once, his voice breaking. "Doctor, how is my wife? And the baby? Please, please save them both." The doctor let out a quiet sigh, his eyes flicking between the two before he spoke, his voice measured but heavy. "We did everything we could, but we couldn't save the baby. I'm sorry. Please prepare yourselves, the blood loss was too severe." The short sentence cut like a blade of ice. Mother Ha froze, her body trembling violently, eyes wide and empty. Then the tears burst forth in torrents, soaking her worn face. She collapsed to her knees, gripping the edge of the bench with shaking hands, her voice breaking into a raw, guttural cry. "Oh God, my child, my grandchild, why would heaven take away such an innocent little soul?" Du stood in stunned silence. His fists clenched so tight that veins bulged across his arms, nails digging deep into his palms. His eyes burned red, his lips trembled, but no words came. Pain and helplessness crushed him like a vice. In his mind, he saw only Hoai collapsing in the cornfield, and heard again the desperate, heart-wrenching cries of Mother Ha. In the stark white corridor of the hospital, only two figures remained, one old, one young, bent beneath the weight of loss. The emergency room door swung shut once more, sealing them off from Hoai, and leaving behind a suffocating darkness filled with grief too deep for words. In the stark white hospital room, the sharp scent of antiseptic hung thick in the air. A fluorescent light flickered faintly above, casting a pale, chilling glow. The steady beep, beep of the heart monitor echoed in the silence, each sound slicing like a blade into the hearts of those waiting. On the bed covered with crisp white sheets lay Hoai, motionless. Her face was ghostly pale, her lips cracked and colorless, drained of all vitality. At her side, Mother Ha and Du sat in silence, their eyes fixed on her every faint movement, hearts burning with restless fear. After hours of agonizing unconsciousness, at last, her eyelids trembled. Slowly, heavily, as though mustering the last of her strength, she opened her eyes. Her blurred, weary gaze drifted across the ceiling, then came to rest on two familiar figures, her mother's face etched with worry and Du, sitting in despair, his hands clenched tightly together. Her throat was parched, her breath weak. With all her effort, Hoai forced out a few broken words, her voice barely more than a whisper. "Mother. Du, the baby, what happened?" That single question shattered them. Mother Ha immediately burst into tears, streams of grief falling onto her trembling hands clutching her daughter's frail fingers. She could not speak, only held tighter, terrified that letting go would mean losing her forever. Du bit down on his lip, bowed his head, unable to utter a word. His eyes, rimmed red with unshed tears, carried the weight of countless unspoken emotions. The air grew thick, heavy, suffocating with sorrow. Though no answer came, Hoai seemed to understand everything. Her eyes dimmed, lashes wet with tears, and slowly, streams of sorrow traced down onto the pillow. She bit her lip to stifle the sobs rising in her throat. With trembling effort, she raised her thin, fragile hand, gesturing to stop them before they could speak. Her voice, faint and wavering, yet firm with resolve, filled the heavy air. "Please, don't tell him. Don't let Hung know. He's out there on duty, in danger every day, carrying so much responsibility. If he learns of this, it will break him. I can't let my pain become his burden. I won't be the reason he falters, the reason his comrades suffer." Each word was a knife twisting deep. Mother Ha wept bitterly, her frail shoulders shaking uncontrollably, wiping her tears only for them to fall again, unstoppable. Du stood frozen, his fists clenched so tight the veins rose against his skin. He drew in a sharp breath, forcing down the storm inside him. At last, with no strength to argue, he only lowered his head in a silent nod, eyes burning as he gave her a wordless promise. This secret would remain with him. The room fell into suffocating silence. Only the creak of the ceiling fan, the drip of the four, and Mother Ha's muffled sobs broke the stillness. The grief was unbearable, but more bitter still was the need to bury it, to lock it deep within their hearts like a wound that could never heal. Hoai slowly turned her gaze toward the window. Outside, the sunset bled red across the sky, thick clouds gathering as if to herald a coming storm. Her vision blurred through the flood of tears. A hand rested on her now flat stomach, where once a fragile life had stirred. She closed her eyes, letting tears flow freely, biting down on her lip as she bore the pain in silence. And in the depths of her heart, only one thought remained. She must protect the family, protect Hung, no matter how much suffering she alone had to endure. A few days after that harrowing ordeal, the doctors finally allowed Hoai to leave the hospital. Though her health had stabilized, her face was still pale, and her body seemed even frilier than before. When the car stopped at the gate, Mother Ha carefully helped her daughter take each slow, unsteady step back into the house. Everything inside the small home remained unchanged, yet the air felt heavier, shrouded in an indescribable sorrow. From that day on, Hoai stayed with her mother, both for easier care and for the comfort of not being alone while Hung was away. Since the incident, Du began visiting more often. He rarely spoke much, only quietly tidied the yard, helped tend the cornfields, sometimes brought vegetables, sometimes carried chickens or ducks to the market. Whenever he saw Hoai sitting silently on the porch, he would try to lighten the mood with stories from the marketplace. Yet in his eyes, there was always a lingering mixture of pity and silent pain. Mother Ha often noticed it. She felt grateful for his help, yet her heart ached, knowing the unspoken burdens each of them carried. Meanwhile, little Tony, the innocent 3-year-old, continued running happily to preschool in the village. Every afternoon, he would dash home, dusty feet, clutching the candy his teacher had given, babbling excitedly about the day. In his wide, innocent eyes, the storms that had shaken the family remained unknown. Tony still laughed freely, still leapt into his mother's arms, still pouted when his grandmother urged him to wash up before dinner. At such moments, Hoai forced herself to smile, wrapping her arms around him. The sound of her child's laughter lit up the home, scattering the shadows that weighed upon it. And yet, behind that smile, her gaze often drifted away, haunted by an unending sorrow. Her hand would wander to her flat belly, each heartbeat a sharp reminder of the tiny life she had lost. When night fell and Tony drifted into deep sleep, the house sank into stillness, broken only by the hum of crickets outside. Hoai would sit quietly on the porch, her eyes fixed on the hazy horizon. The night breeze brushed past her cheeks, but it could not ease the chill inside her heart. She knew she had to be stronger than ever, for her mother, for her child, and for Hung, her husband far away, who still knew nothing of this tragedy. For his sake, she would bear the pain in silence, keeping faith alive for the family they had built together. At the border outpost, after a long and grueling day, Hung and his comrades had just finished an important meeting. On the old wooden table lay piles of thick files, reports on early marriages in the highlands, plans to dismantle smuggling networks that had been operating for months. The room still carried the weight of stern discussions, fatigue etched deeply into every soldier's face. As his comrades filed out one by one, leaving the brightly lit room, Hung lingered behind, quietly gathering a few stray papers. When the room finally fell silent, the tension within him eased slightly. Resting his forehead against his hand, he leaned back in the chair, eyes staring blankly into space. Amid the demands of duty, a wave of longing surged in his chest, smoldering like a fire that refused to die. Images of home filled his mind, Hoai, heavy with child, moving slowly through the cornfield, Mother Ha bending over the kitchen fire, and little Tony running around the yard, his laughter and shouts of "Mama, Grandma" echoing in Hung's heart. With a sigh, he reached for the phone on the table. Among the contacts was the new number Du had recently bought for Hoai. His finger hovered over the screen, hesitating, as if bracing himself before hearing the familiar voice he missed so dearly. Then, with resolve, he pressed call. In the stillness of the camp, the ringtone echoed into the night, each ring stretching endlessly. Back home, Hoai sat by the bed in their small room, bathed in the dim glow of a yellow lamp. Her thin hand rested on her now flat belly, eyes staring blankly out the darkened window. Crickets chirped outside, the wind whistled through the cracks, weaving a mournful melody. Suddenly, the phone rang. Her heart lurched. On the screen, the name that brought both joy and searing pain, Hung. In an instant, tears welled, blurring her vision. Her throat tightened, but she hastily wiped her face, forcing herself to regain composure. Picking up, her voice trembled, yet she forced a fragile smile, trying to sound cheerful though her lips quivered. "Honey. Mother and I are fine. Tony's back from school, he's been good, he even bragged about getting candy from his teacher today. Don't worry about us, focus on your duty." On the other end, Hung's lips curved into a rare smile after days of stress. Just the sound of her gentle voice washed away the fatigue. Leaning back in his chair, eyes drifting toward the dark night sky outside the barracks, he felt a surge of faith and happiness. "Good. That puts me at ease. Take care of yourself, don't work too hard. Once I finish my mission, I'll come straight home to you and our child." Two worlds, two truths. On one end, a soldier at the border, convinced his family was safe, throwing himself fully into his mission. On the other, a fragile woman in a small room, hiding the truth behind a strained smile, burying unbearable grief deep within her heart. When the call ended, Hung still wore his smile, his eyes glowing with trust and love, never suspecting that behind her steady words were tear-stained eyes and a heart silently breaking. Hoai gently set the phone down, her hand trembling. The forced smile faded, replaced by a flood of tears she could no longer contain. She clutched a pillow, biting down hard to stifle her sobs, terrified her mother or Tony might hear. Her frail shoulders shook as the cold moonlight streamed across the porch outside, stretching the shadows of her loneliness and sorrow into the night. Night descended, and a faint breeze rustled through the bamboo at the village gate, carrying with it the earthy scent left behind by the scorching day. From inside the small room, the dim yellow glow spilled out onto the porch, a fragile flame in the vast darkness, warm yet laden with sorrow. Hoai sat quietly, cradling Tony in her arms. The boy had fallen fast asleep after a day of playful laughter at school, his soft hair brushing against his mother's chin with each steady breath. Hoai held him tighter, as though clinging to the last fragment of peace still left in her turbulent life. Her gaze wandered to the endless night sky, where scattered stars flickered faintly. Longing, grief, and helplessness welled up, pressing painfully against her chest. Biting her lip, she finally whispered, her trembling voice barely carried by the wind. "My love. I'm sorry. I couldn't protect our child. But I promise, I will live strong, for you to focus on your duty, for you to stand tall amidst the dangers out there." Tears slipped down, falling onto the small pillow in her arms. Yet through the tears, she forced a fragile smile, one not meant for anyone else to see, only to give herself a shred of courage to keep moving forward. Inside, Mother Ha sat silently by the oil lamp, her weary eyes following every sigh of her daughter. Outside in the yard, Dew's figure appeared briefly before fading into the shadows, his quiet presence forming an invisible thread, slowly pulling the story toward an uncertain, turbulent path. The tragedy of losing her child had struck like an unseen blade, tearing into the young mother's heart. Hoai fought to rise above her grief, but the loss would haunt her forever. Silent tears, a forced smile, and a broken spirit hidden beneath, all endured only to shield Hung, so her husband would not falter in his perilous mission far away. But how long can such a heavy secret remain hidden? As the distance grows, as letters and phone calls become fragile threads of comfort, can the bond between husband and wife withstand the cruel tests of fate? Meanwhile, Dew, the man who always appeared in silence, offering help at the darkest moments, and Mother's boundless love, had become her anchors. Yet this closeness, too, begins to shift the story, pushing it towards stormy and unpredictable turns. Will Hoai be able to hold on to her fragile home, or will wave after wave of hardship sweep everything away? Will Hung return in time to face the truth, torn as he is between duty and love? All will be revealed in the next episode, where unexpected crossroads, painful choices, and fragile faith will shape the destiny of their lives.
Xin chào tất cả mọi người đã quay trở lại với kênh của mình. Hôm nay thì mình tiếp tục đưa đến với mọi người phần tiếp theo của câu chuyện về mẹ đơn thân Lythieuca. Hiện tại thì mình vẫn đang trong quá trình xử lý và vẫn chưa có hoàn thành nha mọi người ơi. Thì mình vẫn đang cố gắng để có thể hoàn thành sớm nhất có thể để có thể gửi đến mọi người. Và mình hy vọng rằng sẽ có thể là gửi đến mọi người sớm nhất có thể, để mọi người, những người yêu quý Hoài Ca và Cảnh sát Hùng cũng như là những người yêu quý kênh mình có thể đón xem video sớm nhất có thể. Và nếu như mà yêu quý kênh mình thì hãy cho kênh mình xin một like, một đăng ký và một subscribe nha mọi người. Và đừng quên đón xem những video tiếp theo vào ngày mai, và kênh của mình sẽ cố gắng lên vào khung giờ cố định là 7 giờ tối hàng ngày. Chúc mọi người xem video vui vẻ. Rất mong có thể gặp lại mọi người trong những video tiếp theo. Bye bye.